Today we'll see how, in the early 1700s, the floating city of Venice glittered with golden palaces, masked festive and bustling markets, while the world around it was quietly changing in ways that would shake its thousand-year empire. And believe it or not, the coffee culture, global trade, and travel you experience today were already shaping the fate of this city. But behind the beauty of canals and grand squares, secret councils, political intrigue, and fading trade routes were slowly pushing this powerful republic toward an invisible collapse. In this story, you'll discover how a city built on mud ruled the world centuries, and how a single unstoppable force finally ended its legendary reign. This true story could outshines any movie. By 1700, Venice was a masterpiece of paradox. To the traveler, she was a miracle rising from the mud, a city of 140,000 souls suspended between the sky and the salt marsh. To the historian, she was a magnificent fossil. For 900 years, the Serenissima, the most serene republic, had functioned as the hinge of the world, a maritime empire that dictated the terms of trade between Europe and the East. But the 18th century brought a cold reality. The gold of the Levant was being replaced by the silver of the Americas. The Mediterranean was no longer the center of the universe. Yet, as her political and military teeth were drawn, Venice donned a mask of unparalleled splendor. This was her gilded autumn, a century of music, gambling, and artistic peaks played out against a backdrop of slow, systemic decay. The air hummed with the distant toll of bells, the splash of oars in brackish water, and the murmur of crowds in narrow alleys. Nobles in silk cloaks glided past, their faces hidden behind elaborate masks, while merchants haggled over spices that once made fortunes. The tension simmered subtly, a city clinging to glory, unaware how fragile its foundations truly were. Yet, even as shadows lengthened in those halls, the city's grandest stage pulsed with life just outside. Something was brewing in the open air that masked deeper unrest. In the 1700s, the Doge's palace was the engine room of a cooling empire. This Gothic masterpiece was not a residence for a monarch, but a colossal bureaucratic headquarters. The Doge, though cloaked in heavy gold brocade, was a figurehead, a gilded prisoner of the state. He lived in the palace, but could not meet foreign dignitaries or open official mail without the presence of his counselors. Real power resided in the Great Council and the Senate, who met in vast halls decorated with the propaganda of past victories. The building also served as the site of the Republic's terrifyingly efficient judicial arm. The Council of Ten met in darkened chambers here, managing state security, counter-espionage, and the suppression of dissent. In the 18th century, the palace was a place of frantic tradition. Even as the Republic's territory shrank, the complexity of its laws increased. It was a government of aging men, obsessed with stability and the preservation of a status quo that the rest of Europe had already abandoned. Within these walls, the most serene government maintained a facade of absolute control, relying on a network of secret informants and the legendary lion's mouths, letterboxes designed to receive anonymous denunciations of treason. The stone floors echoed with hushed whispers, the flicker of candlelight casting long shadows on frescoed walls. As counselors debated in low tones, their decisions weighing heavier with each passing year. Human struggles intensified here, ambitious nobles maneuvering for influence, while the Doge paced his opulent prison, sensing the empire's quiet unraveling. Amid this whirlwind of masks and merriment, a shimmering basilica loomed overhead, holding relics that promised immortality, but harbored hints of vulnerability no one dared acknowledge. In the 18th century St. Mark's Square was the only space in Venice designated as a piazza, All other squares were merely campi. It functioned as the city's grandest stage and its most vital social filter. Under the elegant arcades of the Procuracy, the world's first modern coffee houses began to emerge. Famous establishments like Café Florian, which opened in 1720, became the centers of Venetian intellectual life and high-stakes gossip. Here, Enlightenment ideas from France and England filtered through the city, discussed by noblemen and travelers over cups of chocolate and coffee. The square was also the site of the Liston, a daily social ritual where the aristocracy paraded in their finest silks, effectively a catwalk of political and social standing. During the 6 months of the annual carnival, the piazza was transformed into a sea of masks. The mask allowed for a temporary suspension of the Republic's rigid social hierarchy. A servant could play the part of a prince, and a nun could visit the gambling dens of the Rialto nearby. It was a space of carefully managed chaos, where the Republic allowed its citizens to indulge in hedonism to distract them from the city's waning geopolitical relevance. The cobblestones clicked under polished boots, the aroma of roasted coffee mingled with salty sea air, and laughter echoed off marble columns, but beneath the revelry, tensions rose, social divides blurring dangerously, as whispers of foreign revolutions stirred uneasy thoughts among the elite. As the Grand Canal beckoned with palaces of new wealth, where one family's ambition would push the boundaries of excess in ways that tested old traditions. Dominating the square, St. Mark's Basilica served as the Doge's private chapel and the spiritual heart of the Venetian state. Its 5 Byzantine domes and shimmering gold mosaics were not merely religious icons. They were trophies. 1700s, the basilica was a physical archive of Venetian history, housing relics stolen from Alexandria and marbles plundered from Constantinople centuries earlier. Inside, the air was thick with incense and the complex polyphonic music of the Cappella Marciana, one of the most prestigious musical institutions in Europe. The building was the primary site for the Republic's civil religion. Every major state event, the election of a Doge, the blessing of the fleet, or the celebration of a military victory, was sanctified within its golden walls. The 18th century saw the basilica become a destination for the Grand Tour elite, who marveled at its exotic Eastern atmosphere. To the Venetians, the basilica was proof of their divine election. As long as the relics of St. Mark remained within the high altar, the Republic believed itself to be immortal. It was a place where the state's political identity and its spiritual faith were fused into a single, blinding display of gold and stone. Sunlight filtered through stained glass, casting jeweled patterns on marble floors, while priests chanted in solemn tones. Yet the growing curiosity among visitors hinted at shifting sands, as human ambitions clashed with fading certainties, raising stakes for a city that clung to its sacred myths. Fortunes dazzled. Older lineages guarded their secrets along the same waters, leading to alliances that could make or break the fragile web of power. Rising majestically from the Grand Canal, Ca' Rezzonico is the definitive architectural statement of the 18th century Venetian elite. The Rezzonico family represented the new money of the era. Having purchased their noble title for 100,000 ducats in 1687, they commissioned the greatest architects and painters of the century to build a home that would eclipse the ancient families. The palace was used as a massive social weapon, designed to host the most decadent balls and receptions in the city. Its grand ballroom, the largest in Venice, featured a ceiling fresco by Tiepolo that depicted the family's glory. Candlelight danced on polished marble. The rustle of silk gowns filled vast halls, and the clink of crystal glasses underscored lavish feasts. Yet, amid this opulence, tensions mounted. Upstarts like the Reconstructionists challenged entrenched nobles, their ambitions fueling rivalries that simmered beneath polite smiles, as personal stakes rose in a society where status could vanish overnight. As fortunes wavered in these grand halls, a nearby palace whispered of even deeper fades, where gold once gleamed but now only echoes remained. This Renaissance masterpiece on the Grand Canal served as a high-stakes hub for the 18th century elite. Throughout the 1700s, it was a residence for the Loredan family, one of the apostolic lineages of Venice. These palaces functioned as private embassies. They were the locations where marriage alliances were brokered and financial agreements were struck that kept the city's dwindling wealth within a few select hands. The Loredan Vendôme clergy was a site of constant diplomatic networking, where foreign ambassadors were entertained in halls lined with ancestral portraits. During the 18th century, such residences also frequently hosted the ridotto, private, illegal gambling rooms. Gambling was the great vice of 1700s Venice, and noblemen would often lose entire estates in a single night of basset or faro. The palace was thus a place of both extreme refinement and quiet desperation. It represented the Barnabati, the impoverished nobility who held on to their titles and their palaces even as their bank accounts vanished. The building's beauty, characterized by its classic arched windows and Istrian stone, masked the internal decay of a class that was increasingly disconnected from the merchant adventurer spirit that had built the city. Flickering torchlight illuminated tense card games, the shuffle of cards and muffled gasps heightening the drama as individuals grappled with ruin, escalating personal crises in a world where legacy hung by a thread. While Gothic elegance faded into memory, another building on the canal enforced uneasy truces, where outsiders traded under watchful eyes, signaling shifts no one could ignore. The House of Gold was already 300 years old by the 1700s, but it remained the most haunting sight on the Grand Canal. Originally, its marble tracery was leafed in real gold and painted in ultramarine blue. By the 18th century, the gold had long since flaked away into the water, and the palace served as a poignant reminder of the Serenissimo's mercantile peak. It was used as a residence, but its beauty was increasingly languid, a favorite subject for painters like Canaletto and Guardi, who captured its decaying Gothic elegance for English lords to take home as souvenirs. In the 1700s, the Ca d'Oro represented the historical memory of the city. While the Reconstructionists were building new, heavy Baroque structures, the Ca d'Oro stood as a symbol of the old Venice, a time when the city was a lean, trade empire. For the 18th century traveler, it was the epitome of Venetian Gothic, a style that seemed to defy the weight of the stone. Its delicate, lace-like balcony was a place from which noble ladies watched the regattas on the canal, observing a world that was becoming more about spectacle and less about the gritty commerce of the past. Sunsets gilded the worn facade, the gentle lap of water against stone evoking nostalgia, yet curiosity built, residents pondering lost eras, their decisions weighed down by mounting economic pressures that threatened to erode what little remained. As eastern ties frayed, the city's economic pulse quickened elsewhere, over a bridge where fortunes were made and measured. But storm clouds gathered up. Standing on the upper Grand Canal, the Fondaco dei Turchi served as the mandatory residence and warehouse for Ottoman Turkish merchants. In the 1700s, this was a site of strict administrative control. The Republic, ever pragmatic, maintained trade with the Turks even while at war with the Ottoman Empire in the Mediterranean. The building functioned like a ghetto for trade. Merchants were required to live, pray, and store their goods wax, oil, wool, and spices within its walls. It was locked from the outside at sunset by Venetian guards to prevent unauthorized movement and smuggling. The 18th century Fondaco was a hive of multicultural activity, yet it also signaled Venice's declining status. While it remained a vital link for Eastern goods, the volume of trade had diminished as the English and Dutch East India companies began to dominate the global spice markets. The building was a space of surveillance and suspicion, reflecting the Republic's anxiety about its place in the world. Still, the sight of Turkish merchants on the Grand Canal remained a quintessential part of the Venetian experience, a reminder of the centuries when the city was the only gateway through which the riches of the East could enter the heart of Europe. Exotic scents of spices wafted through barred windows, the clatter of crates and foreign tongues adding layers of intrigue as merchants navigated restrictions, heightening tensions in human stories of ambition and constraint, where one misstep could unravel fragile livelihoods. With markets thriving on a massive complex nearby guarded outdated might, where workers toiled in the shadow of impending obsolescence. The Rialto was the economic soul of Venice, the site where the Republic's coin was minted, managed, and lost. In the 1700s, the stone bridge and the surrounding district functioned as the city's clearinghouse. The shops lining the bridge were the most expensive real estate in the city, selling high-end jewelry, silks, and the famous Venetian theriac, a complex medicine exported across the globe. At the foot of the bridge lay the Banco Giro, the state-guaranteed bank where credit and exchange rates for all of Europe were once negotiated. Even in the 18th century, as the great trade routes shifted, the Rialto remained a frantic center of regional commerce. Morning, the Pescaria fish market and Herbaria vegetable market would overflow with produce from the lagoon and the mainland, feeding the city's 140,000 inhabitants. It was a place of high noise and high stakes, where the shouts of bankers mingled with the cries of fishmongers. For the Venetian government, the Rialto was a barometer of the state's health. As long as the markets were full and the bank was solvent, the Republic could pretend that its golden age had not yet set. It remained the bridge between the city's glorious merchant past and its uncertain, tourist-driven future. The bustle intensified with haggling voices, the glint of coins under sunlight, and the splash of fresh catch. Yet rising curiosity gripped traders, their daily gambles underscoring broader vulnerabilities as global shifts loomed larger, testing the resolve of those who depended on this chaotic heartbeat. As hammers fell silent, a small bridge nearby carried whispers of finality, where condemned souls glimpsed freedom one last time, foreshadowing a greater fall.